When I found out they were making a Mario movie, my first thought was, okay, how's that gonna work? Because making a Mario movie means writing a story based on an IP that famously and deliberately has no story. Mario is the poster child for video games that don't have a story. Almost every game is just Bowser kidnapped the princess, go save her. Nothing more than that. There isn't exactly a whole lot to adapt into a narrative film. They already tried it once, and they could only make it function by changing it so much that it was unrecognizable. And it still wasn't good. But the new Mario movie somehow made it happen. They created a narrative basically from scratch that both works as a film and feels like Mario. They made a good movie, something that most people thought was impossible, including me. I want to figure out how they did it. How did they come up with a coherent story for this movie? Because I think the answers to that question will unlock more of the formula to making video game movies that don't suck. I should start by saying that the Mario movie isn't the only good video game adaptation to come out recently. The Last of Us show was great, and the Uncharted movie was at least competent. But those games already had a pretty robust story to pull from. To make a Mario movie, you're basically inventing a story from scratch. You could say that movies like Sonic and Detective Pikachu face the same hurdles, but I don't think they totally compare. Yes, these movies are adaptations of IP that began as video games, but they really have very little in common with the video games they're based on. The Sonic movie works mostly by taking the character of Sonic the Hedgehog and plopping him into our world. Yet Sonic himself is accurate to his depiction in the games, but the stuff that happens in the movie has very little in common with anything that happens in the games. And Detective Pikachu is set in the world of Pokemon, but again, it's not adapting the story of the mainline Pokemon games. The main character isn't really a trainer, there aren't traditional Pokemon battles, and nobody is trying to be the very best like no one ever was. The movie is a murder mystery. It's adapting the IP of the games, but not the story. And yeah, I know that Detective Pikachu was also a game, but by all accounts it was terrible, and I don't think the movie has much in common with it either. These movies ultimately sidestepped the video game movie question, and instead just made a movie based on these characters. The Mario movie is different. It really does adapt the Mario games. It has a story about a plumber named Mario who travels through the Mushroom Kingdom to rescue Princess Peach from the evil Bowser. By some metrics, this is the first truly faithful video game movie adaptation ever made. But going this route put the writers at a serious disadvantage. How do you take a plot that can be summarized in 3 seconds and fill in 90 minutes of runtime? And beyond just filling the time, how do you make the story interesting, enjoyable, good?
Do you yield? I do not.
Well, they found the answer in a few places. First, the world building. In the games, the world of the Mushroom Kingdom is pretty much just there to be functional. You have Peach's castle at the beginning, Bowser's castle at the end, and a bunch of hodgepodge environments in between that make for fun, varied level design. And all the power-ups and the coins and the floating blocks were just there to facilitate the gameplay. There was no clear narrative reason for them to be there. In a video game, you don't have to give any reasoning for why the world is the way it is. This is a game, and as long as it creates fun, the player doesn't care. When you have a movie, though, where people talk and interact with the world, there needs to be a higher level of cohesion and detail. The audience is much more likely to scrutinize all the nonsense. You need more of an explanation. But don't explain too much, because then it either starts to feel too different from the source material, or accidentally reveals how unexplainable it is. And for this movie, the writers perfectly nailed that balance. For the most part, the movie allows for a lot of weirdness to go unexplained by starting the story with Mario and Luigi in Brooklyn. A classic piece of advice for writing a comedic story is to have either wacky characters in an otherwise normal world, or to have normal characters enter a wacky world. The Sonic movie, for example. A movie set in the Sonic world, where everyone and everything is heightened and ridiculous, would be really hard to pull off. So instead, they took the wacky character of Sonic and put him into the regular real world. The Mario movie does the opposite. Mario and Luigi are mostly represented as regular people who stumble upon this weird cartoon world and are doing their best to grapple with it. They are our entry point into this world. We're much more willing to accept all the nonsense in the Mushroom Kingdom because Mario also thinks it's nonsense.
Okay, so these bricks are just floating here?
The movie also gives more of an explanation for the various places and biomes across the world. Instead of mostly empty wilderness full of creatures that attack you for no reason, We have different kingdoms ruled by different species. You have Peach in the Toad's Kingdom, Bowser's, the Kongs, and the Penguins, and that's enough to imply a wider political landscape.
There's a huge universe out there with a lot of galaxies.
The world building in the Mario movie isn't that deep, but it's given just enough context and description for you to suspend your disbelief for 90 minutes. And that's the important thing. The world's internal logic isn't important. It just needs to not be distracting so that we can watch the characters and the plot uninterrupted. Speaking of, how did this movie adapt characters and plot? When trying to write any story, the driving force is almost always conflict. Stories function by creating a character who wants something, and then creating obstacles to prevent them from getting it. That's how video games work too, by putting obstacles between the player and the end goal. But again, run to the right and save the princess is fine when you, the player, are the one doing it, but that isn't deep or varied enough when you're watching a character do it in a movie. So, how do the writers get around this and create more complex conflict? They pull from the characters. The Mario games might not have much story, but the characters definitely have clear established personalities. So if you're putting these characters in a story, you place them in situations where conflict would naturally arise as a result of that character's personality. Take Bowser. Sure, he's a pretty one-dimensional bad guy, but he's also the character who gets the most dialogue and development across all the games. He's a comedic villain who bumbles his way through situations. This opens up so much potential for comedy within the movie, with him trying to carry out his evil plan while struggling to understand what's going on. Plus, the writers pulled from more recent games where Bowser kidnaps Peach to marry her, which was a really smart move. This gives Bowser's goal an emotional hook. The audience gets to watch him make plans and wonder if it's even possible for them to work.
And when she sees this star, oh ho ho ho, wedding bells.
Well, what if she says no?
Plus, this gives Peach more conflict of her own, as she has to decide whether or not to accept his proposal to stop the fighting. Every major character in the movie works this way. Luigi is known for being a scaredy cat lacking confidence, so the story constantly puts him in terrifying situations where he's in danger. This pushes his character to develop until he learns not to let fear overwhelm him. Donkey Kong has a long history of being Mario's on-again, off-again rival, so the movie leans into that by having them start out as opponents before growing to respect one another. Peach isn't a boring damsel in distress. Instead, the movie draws from games that depict her as hyper-competent and effortlessly cool. That way, they can pit her against the impossible task of stopping Bowser's army, leaving us wonder how she's going to win. This also makes her a good foil for the inexperienced Mario. Even if the games don't give us much in the way of plot to work with, a story naturally arises by putting these characters in situations of conflict, where their personalities clash with either other characters or the environment. But the masterstroke, the thing that takes this movie to the next level, is the characterization of Mario. Because all the other side characters have defined personalities, but Mario? He's the player insert, a blank slate. He has no discernible personality traits. How do you make that the main driving force of a movie? It would seem like you'd be forced to add in new character traits to the point where he's unrecognizable. But the writers found a way around that too. They gave Mario a personality, and they came up with ways to make the audience identify with him, all while staying true to the spirit of the games. The first main thing that the story does to make us care about Mario is beat the snot out of him. At every opportunity, the story finds ways to make Mario suffer humiliating defeat after humiliating defeat. They even put Peach right next to him for most of the movie, to highlight his inadequacies. Peach is so much better than Mario at everything that it makes him look wimpy by comparison. Even though Mario is capable at a lot of things, he's still in over his head. From the very beginning, he's established as an underdog, which makes everyone instinctively root for him. But root for him to do what? In one of the bigger departures from the source material, Mario isn't trying to rescue Peach, he's trying to rescue Luigi. The opening section shows us that the two of them are inseparable, and that Mario would do anything to protect his brother. Watching Mario go on an epic journey to save him is way more compelling than having him try to save a princess whom he wouldn't have even met yet.
But you were gonna help me find my brother. Please?
Watching Mario get closer to his goal, sure he succeeds, but it's usually by the skin of his teeth, and after taking a real beating. But he never gives up. His stubborn refusal to quit is his defining character trait in this movie.
You just don't know when to quit.
Huh. Well, never thought of that as a good thing.
But alongside this, the movie adds in a major character flaw for Mario that was never in the games. Deep down, he's full of self-doubt. He's not sure if he can save his brother, or stop Bowser, or make it as an independent plumber. But he tries anyway. And that's the single most brilliant thing the movie does. Watching Mario wonder if he can really do it, and trying and failing over and over again, that replicates the exact feeling of playing a Mario game. Mario platformers are all about trial and error. You die over and over until you figure out how to beat it. I can't tell you how many times I've rage quit a level only to come back to it later. Those feelings you have as a player controlling the main character, when you watch the movie, you get to see those same feelings in that character you used to control. That's what takes this from being a movie with Mario in it to a Mario movie. All of this, all of these brilliant choices in adaptation are why the Super Mario Bros. Movie is pretty okay.
Huh? What?
Wait, what? I've been heaping praise on this movie for the whole video. Now all of a sudden I say it's just okay? What gives? Let's take the conversation back to when it first came out. Everybody was obsessed with the reviews for this movie. Audiences loved it, but critics hated it. This is yet another installment in the age-old argument about whether critics are out of touch. With other movies, it can be hard to pinpoint a reason for these discrepancies. But for the Mario movie, I think the reason is very obvious. The Mario movie is for Mario fans. It was made specifically to appeal to people who have played the games and know them well. Nintendo crafted everything meticulously to make sure that it looked and felt like the games do. The character design, environments, soundtrack, Easter eggs, all of it is there to scream, "This is Mario!" A coherent story for this movie must have been pretty hard to come up with, for reasons I've already explained. And they did it, they created a competent story, but that story is not the main priority of this movie. It mainly exists to tie together all of the Mario aesthetics and ideas. If you're a fan of Mario, it's amazing just to see a movie that looks and feels like Mario. If it has that, it doesn't take a whole lot to hook you into it. But what about if you're not a Mario fan? What if you don't know the games that well? What does this movie have for you? Judging by the critic reviews, not much. Think about it. How many professional movie critics are also gamers? Probably not a ton. And even if they are, they've trained themselves to look at movies more objectively. If we forget about comparing this movie to the games for a minute, and just talk about the writing and story on its own terms, there's a lot of stuff missing. The movie moves at an insane pace, like it's holding down the fast forward button, and it just kind of skips over a lot of the key emotional beats that most other movies would have. To name a few, when Mario goes to meet Peach, Peach immediately trusts him and recruits him to help her with her mission. Despite the fact that Mario is a stranger who broke into her house, they become friends in literal seconds.
Princess!
Wait! Release him.
Mario and Luigi's family are cartoonishly mean to them, and yet we're still supposed to cheer when they reunite at the end. It's clear to me that the movie was trying to get to the Mushroom Kingdom as quickly as possible, so it didn't have time to develop this relationship. Bowser always knows exactly where Mario and Peach are and what they're doing. In every scene with him, one of his minions pops in and says, like, "Our spies have tracked them down, and this is what they're doing." They never explain how they're getting this information.
They are heading toward their secret passage.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
The thing that brings Mario and Donkey Kong together is when they commiserate about the pressure put on them by their fathers. But it doesn't do much to show that pressure. Each of them has like one negative interaction with their dad in the whole movie. And weirdest of all, the movie doesn't have a strong all is lost moment. Or darkest hour, dark night of the soul, breaking point, whichever term you prefer. The moment near the climax where the hero loses confidence and almost gives up. This is a critical part of most stories because it highlights the main character's internal conflict and gives the finale more punch by showing them overcoming it. Mario has this very brief moment where he gets a little shaken up and retreats from the fight, but it lasts all of 15 seconds. It might as well not even be there. Time and time again, the Mario movie skips over these key character moments. Instead of fully developing them, it relies on the audience already knowing who these characters are and how they're supposed to act. We don't need to show Mario and Peach getting to know each other, you already expect them to be close. We don't need to know the finer details of Bowser's plans, he just needs to be a huge threat. Speaking of, I think that this is why Bowser is the most consistently praised part of the movie, besides Jack Black's performance. He's the villain, he doesn't need to have a deep character arc.
I guess love really makes a guy come out of his shell. I told you that line wouldn't work.
You're doing great.
The Mario movie takes all these shortcuts. It feels that it doesn't need to put in the work to get you invested in these versions of the characters. Your positive feelings about the games will fill in the gaps for you. Nintendo played this movie very safe. It made sure that it looked and felt like the games to keep existing fans happy and protect the image of the all-important Mario brand from anything unexpected or controversial. But if you're not already a fan, this movie doesn't have an emotional hook for you, and it comes across as a mess of loud, bright colors with no substance.
You really thought
we would like this movie?
Kinda.
Ultimately, this is a huge leap forward in video game movies. For so long, video game movies were so disrespected and made by people who didn't understand or care about the source material at all. We're finally at that point culturally where Hollywood is willing to take video game adaptations seriously. The Mario movie is the first video game movie that genuinely looks and feels like the games do. That alone is remarkable, and it's enough to make fans go nuts over it. If you have all that, all you really need is for the story to be basically competent. It's kind of like getting one of those cakes from Cake Boss. Does it really matter if the cake tastes great? Who cares? That's a cake that looks like a transformer. Does it matter if the plot of the Mario movie is pretty basic? Who cares? They made a real story that's really based on the Mario games. My sincere hope is that the Mario movie ages poorly. I hope that we keep getting good and accurate adaptations until the novelty wears off, pushing Hollywood to innovate and create more inventive stories. The Mario movie might not be perfect, but it's a huge leap forward, and I have a good feeling that it'll open a lot of doors to better movies later. There's no door in here.
How long you guys been in here?
Time, like hope, is an illusion.